He didn't need to kill them. The Star Lake Python could kill them. Everyone did their work seriously. Even if the Star Lake Python was right beside them, they still had to complete their work. For this, Zhonggung had trained them for a long time. At this time, they showed their efficiency. The moment the order was given, the entire fleet moved quickly. There wasn't a trace of chaos. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but praise. He was also afraid that this fleet was a motley crew. He didn't expect this fleet to be like an army. They were swift and decisive. He said, "Not bad, the fleet is not bad." Wu Jin explained softly, "Master has trained them for a long time." Lei Xingfeng nodded and thought, "No wonder. There is a difference between trained and untrained." He smiled and said, "The previous failures were due to insufficient training?" Wu Jin was a little embarrassed and said, "There was no training at all for the first 2 times. It was a mess. There was training for the 3rd time, but we didn't find the Star Lake Python." He. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh. They were really unlucky. He said, "This time, we will definitely succeed, as long as it comes out." It was noon. The sun was shining brightly. The morning fog had already dispersed. From the bow of the ship, they could see very far. The lake here stretched as far as the eye could see. No one knew how big it was. Moreover, the lake here was very deep. Zhonggung had sent people to investigate before. The water was more than 100 meters deep, and they couldn't reach the bottom. The deeper the lake, the stronger the monster. Everyone knew this in their hearts. Only in this kind of place was the best place for large aquatic creatures to live. If it was shallow water, large fishes wouldn't be able to go. No matter how good the environment was, it would be useless. A silver light flashed, followed by a blue light. A water mark appeared in the distance. Zhonggung shouted in surprise, "It's true! That's the Star Lake Python." "Ha! Ha! We finally see it again." Wu Jin also shouted, "Good! Master, I will go to that ship." He immediately boarded a very small boat, which was tied to the back of the big boat. It was a small boat that was specially used to board the various wooden boats. He went to the big wooden boat that Tian Dabing was on. He was the commander, and Tian Dabing was not qualified. Chapter 98. 3 days later, Lei Xingfeng helplessly looked at the dense reed marshes. He had been moving forward, but even now he was still surrounded by the reed marshes. This was a natural maze. If he could fly into the air, he might be able to find a way out. But now it was all up to luck. If he wanted to get out, it would be extremely difficult. 6 days. After wandering around the reed marshes for 6 whole days, Lei Xingfeng's heart was boiling with anger. He had no choice but to suppress his anger and sit quietly, not daring to cultivate. Luckily, there was a lot of rice on the boat and various other food. Adding on the countless fish and prawns in the lake, eating was not a problem, so he still had the energy to move around. Sitting at the front of the boat, letting the rain pour on his body, Lei Xingfeng gradually calmed down. He realized that he was becoming more and more violent. He knew that this was a side effect of his martial arts. Luckily, he was an extremely peaceful person in his previous life. That was why he was able to effectively control his emotions after his cultivation increased. In his previous life, whenever he was extremely frustrated, Xianfeng would like to sit cross-legged in meditation, emptying his mind, and every time it had a good effect. Of course, that wasn't training, but a way to calm his mind. He didn't expect it to be useful in this life, and very useful at that. Once he meditated, the Berserk Lun Inli would gradually calm down, as if he was washing the sand, finding the gold, and discarding the sand. After meditating a few times, Lei Xingfeng gained a lot of benefits. It also made him realized the importance of meditating. In these 6 days, whenever he was in an extremely violent and bloodthirsty mood, the desire to kill would rise and fall. At that time, he would start meditating, slowly calming himself down, and slowly train his Luan Yinli. Gradually, Lei Xingfeng became addicted to the feeling of meditating. Every time he finished meditating, he felt as if he was reborn. Lei Xingfeng did not know that he had escaped a great calamity. If he successfully returned and was unable to control his violent emotions, it was very likely that under some provocation, he would go berserk. With his strength, slaughtering the entire market would not be a problem at all. No one would be able to stop him. In the past, Elder Thunderstorm was like this. He would easily kill until rivers of blood flowed, making his enemies all over the world. That was why Xian Feng decided to live in this reed marsh for a period of time and slowly search for a way out. Even if he couldn't find one, he didn't need to fret, as there would be a day when he would be able to leave. When he made this decision, his heart was calm, and he even felt a sense of joy. Even he himself found it strange that he would feel happy. At this point, Xian Feng wasn't in a rush. Every time he reached a fork in the road, he would quietly make a mark to indicate the path he had taken. The moment he passed by it again, he would know that he had come back. His daily task was to cultivate, meditate, make marks, catch fish, and cook. It was a very simple life, but it made his Luan Yinli more and more pure. Its nature was also more and more inclined towards Yinli. He did not purposely pursue advancement. Every day, there would be new discoveries, and every day there would be joy in his heart. However, Lei Xingfeng gradually understood a principle. Since he cultivated the lightning attribute, then the berserk side was unavoidable. Everything he was doing now was to control and suppress. Now, relying on the meditation from his previous life, he could solve this problem very well. But when he advanced again, meditation might not be able to solve this problem. After living in the reed marshes for more than 30 days, Lei Xingfeng not only stabilized his cultivation, but also reached the edge of advancing to the fourth true ring body. This was not something he pursued, but something he achieved naturally. The rice was almost finished. Xian Feng had been very careful these past few days, eating mostly fish and prawns, eating very little rice. Although he was no longer impatient, he still couldn't find a way out. His heart was still a little anxious. When would he be able to find a way out? These 2 days, it was rare for the sky to be clear. Moreover, there was sunlight. The surroundings were quiet, and a few water birds flew by. Lei Xingfeng lay on the bow of the boat, basking in the warm sunlight. He was still thinking of a way to get out. In reality, he knew that, unless he happened to get out, he would not know even if he reached the edge of the reed marshes. After living on the cold and damp lake for so long, he finally had sunlight. Feeling warm and comfortable, Xian Feng unknowingly fell asleep. The boat floated with the current. This sleep was very deep. All of his fatigue, nervousness, and uneasiness were all gone. This sleep was the best sleep he had ever had in his life. And this sleep lasted for 2 days and 2 nights. When he opened his eyes, he suddenly found his boat stuck in a clump of reeds. And through this clump of reeds, there was a boundless lake in front of him. Lei Xingfeng was stunned for a long time. He rubbed his eyes hard and looked back at the wall of reeds. Only then did he understand that he had actually gotten out of the reed marshes. He had no idea how he got out. Motherf asterisk cur. What is this? How did I get out like this? But this doesn't make sense. Lei Xingfeng thought as he looked at the stuck boat. He suddenly came to his senses and could not help but slap himself. Stupid. I can get out just by following the current. King messed around for dozens of days. He began to meditate because sitting he felt at the front that of the he was going to explode. Lei Xingfeng's face was full of helplessness. He touched his face. This slap was not light. When he finished meditating and calmed down, he looked up and was immediately shocked. The lake was densely packed with small boats. He did not know who they were, but they were actually confronting each other on the lake. Among them, there were two small boats that were charging at each other. There were hundreds of boats on each side, filling the entire lake. With one look, he knew that this was a battle between two powers. After a short observation, Lei Xingfeng lost interest. These were all ordinary people, not cultivators. A battle between ordinary people was not interesting to him. In any case, Lei Xingfeng did not dare to enter the reed marshes again. This place was too scary, although there were no fierce beasts and no direct danger. This method of surrounding people was extremely terrifying. If it was not for the fact that he mysteriously ran out, Lei Xingfeng estimated that he would have to at least advance to a true ring body and be able to fly before he could successfully escape. Looking back at the reed marshes and then at the two sides in front of him, Lei Xingfeng easily decided to walk from the front and not turn back. Suddenly, there was the sound of drums, followed by loud shouts. The boats from both sides began to charge forward. There were also the sounds of steel crossbows being fired. Lei Xingfeng did not think that these ordinary people would be equipped with such killing weapons. Steel crossbows could even threaten low-level cultivators. Even Thousand Luan Masters would not dare to face the arrows directly. Only Wan Luan sure could rely on his condensed ring armor to block the arrows. Thousand Luan Masters' Lunley armors were slightly weaker. Following the sound of the steel crossbows being fired, there was a wave of miserable cries. It was obvious that someone had been shot. The battle between ordinary people was actually not any worse than a cultivator's battle. It was also very cruel. After the boats collided, other than colliding, the sides of the boats would lean against each other and attack each other with weapons. Harpoons, steel spears, shields, and bows. The sounds of killing filled the entire lake. Lei Xingfeng was still thinking about whether or not to directly rush out. He did not think that both sides would have backup. Dozens of large boats and over 1,000 small boats appeared from two different directions. Xian Feng sucked in a breath of cold air. This number was a bit frightening. Each side had a few dozen large boats and a few thousand small boats. The entire lake was filled with boats. At a glance, it was a majestic sight. The only difference between a normal person's battle and a practitioner's battle was the number of people. Once a normal person started a battle, the number of people would be in the tens of thousands. If a small boat had 10 combatants and 2 boatmen, just the small boats alone would have 20,000 people. The battle cries got louder and louder. There were even more steel crossbows on the large boats, shooting out even more arrows. There were also bows and arrows shooting nonstop. The sky was filled with arrows dancing in the air. Lei Xingfeng laughed bitterly. He did not know what to do. If he went out now, he would definitely be attacked. With his current temper, once he was attacked, he would definitely not hesitate to counterattack. This battle was definitely inexplicable. He did not want to join in. Suddenly, there was a long whistle. A figure jumped out from the large boat and pounced towards the opposite side. Lei Xingfeng's eyes immediately squinted. He realized that this was a cultivator. It should be 1,000 Luan Master. His body flashed with the light of a ring armor. If his body was fast enough and agile enough, he could definitely dodge most of the arrows. Immediately after, another person rushed out from the large boat and pounced towards the opponent. That person was also 1,000 Luan Master. Lei Xingfeng sighed and thought to himself, as expected, there are still cultivators in the organization. To be able to organize tens of thousands of normal people into a battle, in this world, only cultivators could do it. Small-scale battles did not count. For this kind of large-scale battle, it was unimaginable that there were no cultivators in it. The cultivators in this world were equivalent to nobles. They had a high status and had the natural right to manage the normal people. This was a right given by strength. If one wanted to take away this right, then they had to be stronger. Lei Xingfeng watched silently. He knew that this was not a suitable time to appear. Even if he was in a hurry to go back, he could only wait patiently. The normal people's battle was also extremely cruel. Screams, roars, and the sound of steel crossbows piercing through the air. The entire lake seemed to be boiling. The reeds were startled by a large group of water birds. Among them, there were many wild ducks and other flying birds. Boom, 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 countless balls of fire appeared and hit the small boats, causing a huge fire. This was caused by a cultivator. According to Lei Xingfeng's judgment, this was definitely a Wanluan Shi, a fire attribute, Wanluan Shi. Suddenly, the lake water surged, flipping over tens of small boats. That was the work of the water attribute, Wanluan Shi. Lei Xingfeng secretly calculated how many cultivators there were. Until now, he only saw Wanluan Shi taking action. He did not see any mill-wheel masters. However, he guessed that Wanluan Shi was just a hired thug at the front. There must be other mill-wheel masters around. Maybe there was a true ring mill-wheel master. Lei Xingfeng laughed suddenly and thought to himself, small boats came towards his position. Are you afraid that it's an ambush? I only have one boat. Your eyesight is really sharp to be able to discover me from so far away. He increased his vigilance. Chapter 99. Seeing that the small boats were getting closer, more than a dozen smaller boats appeared behind them. The most interesting thing was that both sides had sent small boats to investigate. Lei Xingfeng didn't know whether to retreat
He actually
or
has
advance.
a new boat all by himself.
He didn't want to have a conflict with the other party. I worked until I was almost bring him any benefits before I got my first boat. He didn't have any grudges even a second-hand broken boat. However, this little guy has a new boat avoided such just because you wanted to. Why don't we snatch this boat? Lei Xingfeng looked back at his boat. Lei Xingfeng's lips curled into a mocking smile. Why he was discovered. They actually wanted to snatch the mast on the boat was much taller than the reeds. He suddenly understood with such an obvious ordinary people would be violent and impossible for others not when they saw someone weaker than them. Even if he didn't put up a sail, they might even be more excessive than cultivators. A small middle-aged man approached, saw that there were 5 or 6 people standing at the bow, and only smiled. They were all as if he did not hear what he said. However, he doubtfully muttered to himself, discovered that they were all fully armed. Every one of them was holding a harpoon. He said, "You're the one who's deaf." There were even steel shields erected on the boat. Those people were in every one of them looked. Many of them they were facing. Where did this little bastard come from? Lei Xingfeng how dare he speak like cross-legged? He doesn't want to live anymore. He helplessly looked. A few more boats came from behind. Was speeding towards him. On one of the boats, he thought to himself, "A strong man this shouted, conflict will be difficult to avoid." What's going on? He didn't know why. The battle is intense. He had a feeling of so much time in his heart, who's hiding. He had a very bloodthirsty impulse. The middle-aged man, however, with the surname Chen, he didn't pay much attention to the change in his heart. A young man, he coldly looked at the small. The strong man shouted, "That small boat, go back and capture that young man. This world was too dangerous. Some people couldn't be offended. Row it over here." So even if they had the numbers advantage, heard it. They didn't dare to act. He slowly stood up when they saw Exine. I don't think I've offended you, right? They all let out a sigh of relief from his appearance. Why do you want to steal my boat? The only suspicious thing was that he was less than 100 meters away from his skin was very white, so he could definitely not hear a fisherman who had been exposed to the sun. He said, "Every day, this is the first time I've seen such a white and tender boy. Seeing a young man sitting cross-legged go and grab him at the bow." Everyone happens to be lacking. There was no ambush. This boy is no large number of boats. Lei Xingfeng's there was only anger one suddenly rose to the top of his head. In an instant, his face turned red. The people who were holding up their shields for him to calm down, but lower their shields. He squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. The people who were holding bows, reckless fools, also lowered their bows. The group of people, their eyes turned to a middle-aged with laughter. He held a steel harpoon loudly in his hand. "Chew louder." He glanced at Lei Xingfeng, "You've taken a fancy," and then looked at this little guy. Only then did he step forward. Lei Xingfeng was stunned by the obscenities. The middle-aged man, even in his previous life, and shouted, he had never heard such words. Who was not far away. At that moment, guy, are you he began to wonder how where these ordinary people in your had the guts to speak like this. A few people holding harpoons whispered, "I hope you don't regret it." Brand new. Lauda did not think that's too right. Much. It's a new boat. In fact, the paint if he thought a little, also freshly he should know how unreasonable Lei Xingfeng was. Very beautiful. A young man with a new boat in the lake during the rainy season. No matter what, he was not an ordinary person. However, he was blinded by his own strength. He thought that bullying a child would not make him feel any psychological burden. Even if he resisted, what could he do? Just throw it into the lake. And there would naturally be hunting. The death of a child was not a big deal. Clean. There was no need to dispose of the body. Go get some people and capture him. This little guy's mouth is quite stubborn. Regret? Regret my ass. Ha ha. I regret messing with you. Capture him. Someone laughed. Chu Lauda, you're too bad. You're so fierce to a child. You have to be gentler. Ha ha. Ha ha ha. Ping. That person laughed halfway and stopped abruptly. Lei Xingfeng held the black bow and said faintly, "I will treat you very gently." Ping, 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 ping. Like a storm, the sound of metal clashing rang out. 3 arrows per second. To Lei Xingfeng, it was not a burden at all. In his hidden Luan space, there were at least 100 arrows. When an arrow was shot out, it would not only take down one person, it would often pierce through 2 or even 3 people. Some people raised their shields in panic, but the thick wooden shields could not block the arrows at all. They were directly shot through by the steel arrows. The people hiding behind were also shot through by the arrows. Chu Laoda watched his subordinates fall one by one. He was stunned by Lei Xingfeng's ruthless killing methods. In a few breaths, 7 or 8 people had died, and Lei Xingfeng did not have any signs of stopping. He just calmly shot arrow after arrow. Chen Laoda was nailed to the deck by an arrow. That arrow pierced through his shoulder. It was not that Lei Xingfeng's aim was bad, but he did not plan to kill him. The others were not so lucky. Whether they were hiding in the cabin or standing on the boat, they were all coldly killed by Lei Xingfeng. Originally, he did not plan to interfere, but after being humiliated by this group of strange people, Lei Xingfeng completely changed his mind. In less than a minute, the people on the dozens of boats were all killed by Lei Xingfeng's black bow. He only left a few people, including Chu Laoda, Chen Laoda, and 2 people who were the dirtiest at the beginning. Lei Xingfeng had always hoped to remain calm and kill less, but in this kind of situation, he did not mind killing. He was being bullied to the point of being calm. If he did not make a move now, he would be a coward. Whether it was in his previous life or this life, he had never been a coward. It was fine if he did not make a move, but once he did, Lei Xingfeng was a little unable to control himself. There were a few boats that fell behind. When they saw Lei Xingfeng start to kill, they hurriedly fled to the distant fleet. Lei Xingfeng shot the people on the deck from afar. However, his attention was still on Chu Laoda and Chen Laoda. He hated these 2 people very much. These 2 people were the ones who forced him to make a move. He continuously jumped a few times and was already on Chen Laoda's boat. He grabbed onto Chu Laoda's shoulder. His fingers had already dug into his flesh. He directly locked onto Chu Laoda's collarbone and forcefully pulled him down from the deck. Chu Laoda howled as he jumped onto Chu Laoda's boat. He casually threw Chen Laoda to the bow of the boat and said indifferently, "You are Chu Laoda?" Chu Laoda's eyes were about to pop out. Only now did he realize that he had caused a disaster. However, he still had some hope because there were practitioners in the fleet that he was on. He tried his best to calm down and said, "Brat, you provoked us. You are finished. When our masters come, you will definitely not be able to live." Lei Xingfeng grinned and said, "Oh, very good. Your masters will definitely appreciate your ability to provoke enemies." With a flick of his finger, an electric arc flew out. Chu Laoda began to jump up. This thing was definitely more powerful than the electric batons in his previous life. It hit Chu Laoda until his whole body trembled. It was only now that Chu Laoda realized that Lei Xingfeng was also a practitioner. Lei Xingfeng did not let go of any of the people who had said nasty things just now. He especially hated this kind of people who only knew how to talk big and had a vicious heart. He threw them one by one onto Chu Laoda's boat. He flipped his wrist and took out a long spear. He said, "I like to kill those people with nasty mouths." With a thrust of the spear, it pierced one of the people's mouth. The wide tip of the spear only rotated a little, but that person's tongue and teeth were all broken. After dealing with a few people in a row, he pierced Chu Laoda's thigh with the spear and said, "I am very curious. Do I look like I am easy to bully?" Chu Laoda's face was pale, and his whole body trembled. He could not speak properly, and said, I don't. It hurts. Lei Xingfeng said, "I hate people like you. Can't you be a little tougher? Why are you screaming like a ghost?" He forcefully twisted the steel spear, frowned, and said, I hope you don't regret it. Do you regret it?" Chu Laoda was about to cry. He howled, regret. It hurts. It hurts. Chapter 100. Lei Xingfeng said, "I'm too lazy to ask who you are, but since you've provoked me, then I'll make sure you won't regret it." At this time, a large ship and 7 or 8 smaller ships sailed over. The small ships had steel crossbows on them, while the large ship had a few people pointing at Lei Xingfeng's ship. Chu Laoda arched his body. He was in so much pain that he wanted to die immediately. When he saw the large ship approaching, he gritted his teeth and said, Our people are here. Brat, you better let me go. Lei Xingfeng's spear pierced through Chu Laoda's other leg. He said, Oh, if I don't let you go, then what? Roar. Boss Chu howled miserably. This spear had almost driven him crazy. His 2 legs had been pierced twice by the spear. It was almost certain that his 2 legs were completely done for. If no cultivator appeared to save him, he would definitely be crippled. Stop! A shout came from afar. Lei Xingfeng was immediately unhappy. He was already extremely angry from being involved in the battle. He shouted, What are you playing at? Scram! He knocked an arrow on his bow and shot it over. The middle-aged man who shouted at the ship's bow had a red light flash in his hand. He actually reached out to grab the arrow. Lei Xingfeng laughed coldly and shot out another arrow. This time, he added a bit of Luan Yinli to it. The arrowhead flashed with an extremely thin arc of electricity. If one didn't pay attention, they definitely wouldn't be able to see it. The middle-aged man grabbed the arrow, but he also retreated. He was shocked by the power of the opponent's arrow. He paid more attention to it. Immediately after, another arrow was shot. He reached out to grab it again. Pooh! The arrow's speed suddenly increased, and the steel arrow suddenly emitted a dazzling light. The man's face immediately turned pale, and he subconsciously used his arm to block in front of his eyes. The arrow instantly passed through his arm and hit his head, piercing his forehead in an instant. Even though he had activated the ring armor with all his strength, he still couldn't. With a single arrow made the other party vigilant. Moreover, they were on the verge of going crazy. Twitched a few times and died at the bow in a small place. Suddenly, the ship was in chaos. Now that he was killed, no matter which side it was, to death. This hatred would definitely not be easily resolved. Inconceivable. Hundreds of small boats, a wave of drums rang out. 7 large ships. It was the sound of the drums calling for help. Headed towards Lei Xingfeng's location. Put away his black bow. Chu Laoda's mouth was full of blood. You want me to stop? He gritted his teeth. I want you to completely shut up. You're finished. You're finished. A bunch of bastards. He clearly saw that messing with me for no reason. Sure. I hate he was one of the organizers this time. I want all of you to die. Even he was killed. If you mess with me again, in his heart, don't blame me for killing you. They had formed a death grudge was getting with more and more irritable. His heart suddenly relaxed. He really wanted to disregard even if he was everything. He would not feel uneasy until now because this would not affect his control himself. But he also understood in his heart that this getting weaker. He was the one who caused this disaster. This disaster, after Lei Xingfeng killed the Wanluan Shi, was no longer important. In any case, they would not rest until one of them was dead. It did not matter who caused this disaster. Lei Xingfeng's heart was anxious. He stabbed him to death with his spear and said, I'm finished. Your F*** finished first. Chen Laoda felt a chill in his heart. He did not dare to say a word. He just lay on the ground and pretended to be dead. Lei Xingfeng's attention was all focused on the fleet that was rapidly approaching from afar. There were hundreds of large boats. They looked really mighty and imposing. The killing intent in his heart grew stronger and stronger. His eyes became brighter and brighter. His eyes even flashed with traces of silver lightning. An extreme desire surged into his heart. He wanted to kill. He wanted to vent. Chen Laoda was about to go crazy. He kept wailing in his heart. What kind of monster did they provoke? Lei Xingfeng's eyes shined as he stared into the distance. He kept his black bow and spear. He continuously jumped and landed on a small boat. This was the boat closest to the front. For a moment, he forgot about dealing with Chen Laoda. He looked forward to the fleet approaching. 3 true ring bodies, true Luanine master. With Lei Xingfeng's strength, it was definitely a little scary. especially in such a small place, a remote and unknown place. In this kind of place, a Wan Luan sure could do whatever he wanted. Lei Xingfeng did not know what kind of status a true Luanine master would have. In fact, even if Lei Xingfeng was a mill-wheel master, with his strength as a lightning cultivator, he had the strength to contend against a true mill-wheel master with one true ring body. Now, it was different. He wanted to see how much strength he could display. This made him very eager to battle. When the fleet was within 100 meters, with an order, countless crossbows were fired. The crossbow bolts rained down. This wave of attack was purely to test the waters. Lei Xingfeng did not care at all. This level of attack could not break through his defense. A mill-wheel master's secret ring armor was enough to block it. He was a true Luanine master. This level of attack was nothing to him. He clasped his hands behind his back and watched as the crossbow bolts rained down. A faint silver light flickered, and the crossbow bolts were all deflected. Like a rock in the water, all the crossbow bolts slid past it in an instant. With a series of clanging sounds, most of the crossbow bolts nailed to the deck of the ship. The deck of the ship was densely covered with crossbow bolts. Lei Xingfeng waited patiently. He wanted to wait for the fleet to get closer so that he could kill his way onto it. Wave after wave of crossbow bolts rained down as the fleet gradually drew closer. When they were about 10 meters away, Lei Xingfeng could see the shocked faces of the other party. So many crossbow bolts, but not a single one was able to harm him. These people revealed an extremely shocked expression. Lei Xingfeng saw a few practitioners gathered at the bow of a large ship. They were all staring at Lei Xingfeng as if trying to estimate Lei Xingfeng's strength. The crossbow bolts stopped firing. They knew that this level of attack was completely useless. It was purely a waste of crossbow bolts. Lei Xingfeng suddenly roared and leapt out, crashing onto a large ship. The practitioners on the ship could not help but retreat a few steps, opening up an empty space. There were two Wan Luan Shi, a mill-wheel master, and an old man behind them. Lei Xingfeng immediately saw that this person had a true ring body. He was actually a true mill-wheel master. It was no wonder that the other party was so confident. A true mill-wheel master was practically an invincible existence in this small place. Lei Xingfeng stared at the person and said, "You are their leader?" He did not care about the two Wan Luan Shi and the mill-wheel master at the side. The old man slowly stepped forward. His expression was grave. Lei Xingfeng had killed a Wan Luan Shi, but he could not see through Lei Xingfeng's cultivation. Just this point alone made him very cautious. He was silent for a moment, then said, "Wan Yuzhou, true mill-wheel master." It was a very formal self-introduction. This was because the other party was around the same level as himself, which was why he was so serious. The other three practitioners were surprised. One must know that Wan Yuzhou was their secret weapon. Unless there was no other choice, he would not show himself. Lei Xingfeng knew that this battle would be difficult. The other party could not see through his cultivation, but used this method to test him. He said indifferently, "Lei Xingfeng, true Luanine master." This was the rule agreed upon by the cultivators. Basically, everyone knew about it and would not refuse to introduce themselves because of this. Moreover, this was often a probing method used by lower-level cultivators to prevent things from getting out of hand. Wan Yuzhou had a look of disbelief. What a joke! A young man was actually a true Luanine master. This was impossible, but the person in front of him was one. He could not even see through him. The other three cultivators no longer had shocked expressions on their faces. Instead, they were completely dumbfounded. Wan Yuzhou probed. You were invited by them?" He pointed at the fleet that was still fighting. Xianfeng shook his head. No. He straightforwardly denied it. He indeed wasn't on the opposing side. He was provoked by others. Wan Yuzhou carefully asked, "Then why did you attack us?" Lei Xingfeng was enraged when he heard this. He said, "I attacked you? All right, I even caught one alive. You can ask him yourself." Wan Yuzhou immediately sent people over. The only one alive was Chun Laoda. Fortunately, Wan Yuzhou and the others came quickly. Otherwise, he would have been killed by Lei Xingfeng. Chun Laoda was brought over by a Wan Luan Shi. He was only shot by an arrow and his life was not in danger. Wan Yuzhou asked, "What is going on?" Lei Xingfeng sneered. "You don't know what is going on." He looked at the other with an indifferent expression. The situation was very simple. Chun Laoda explained it clearly in a few words. Wan Yuzhou's face revealed an awkward expression. He said in a deep voice, "Since he wasn't an ambush and wasn't a threat to us, why did we offend him?" If Lei Xingfeng was a normal person, then offending him wouldn't be a big deal. But he was a true Luanine master, an expert that condensed 3 true ring bodies. This was a fatal mistake. Chun Laoda was tongue-tied. He didn't know how to reply. Wan Yuzhou raised his harpoon and nailed him to the boat. He then said sincerely, "Since he offended you, then he deserved to die. I apologize." Killing Chun Laoda cleanly, Lei Xingfeng felt a chill in his heart. Suddenly, Lei Xingfeng seemed to have felt something. He looked up at the sky and said casually, "All right, forget it. You guys fight. I'm just a passerby." He turned and left. He directly boarded his boat and sailed towards the reed marsh. Apart from being dumbstruck, Wan Yuzhou thought to himself, "Strange, why did he leave so straightforwardly?" Chapter 101. Wan Yuzhou watched as Lei Xingfeng left. He didn't dare to stop him, but his heart was relieved. Originally, as long as Lei Xingfeng left, he would have agreed to pay a certain price, but he couldn't understand how a youngster could have such strength. A true Luanine master like him. As a true mill wheel with one true ring body. How could he endure it? He felt that he had lived for so many years. He couldn't even compare to a child. Lei Xingfeng rowed the boat like an arrow, quickly entering the reed marsh. However, this time he didn't go deeper, but hid at the edge of the reed marsh. It wasn't because he was afraid of Wan Yuzhou, but because he felt a terrifying aura that threatened him. So he didn't have the mood to continue entangling with Wan Yuzhou. Since he didn't have anything to lose, it was better to leave. Even if he hid at the side and peeked, it was still safer than standing on the boat. One must know that a truly powerful expert would be able to understand the general situation with just a glance. With his strength as a true Luanine master, he was like a bright lamp. Wan Yuzhou didn't have such a sensitive feeling. After all, he was a true mill wheel master. If his strength didn't reach a certain level, he wouldn't be able to sense this kind of threat. He watched as Lei Xingfeng entered the reed marsh and couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. He still had some doubts in his heart. This reed marsh was very famous in the area, known as the Great Lost Marsh. If one accidentally entered it, very few people would be able to come out alive. Countless fishermen died inside. Thus, this reed marsh was a forbidden area that no one dared to enter. When Lei Xingfeng entered the reed marsh, Wan Yuzhou couldn't help but laugh coldly. He wouldn't warn him. It would be best if he died inside. This little brat was too much of a threat to him. Let's go, Wan Yuzhou ordered. They were still in the middle of a battle, and Lei Xingfeng had appeared, forcing them to send out their core experts to deal with the problem. This had weakened their strength to a dangerous level. He had to bring his men back quickly. The fleet immediately turned back. After Lei Xingfeng entered the reed marsh, he did not enter the fork in the road. Instead, he parked the fishing boat on the side of the waterway and set down a rock to anchor the boat to the side of the reed marsh. He directly entered the reed marsh. He wanted to figure out what was giving him sank his body
such
into
a
the
strong
mud,
sense of
only
danger.
exposing his head.
Through the gaps,
His
in the
eyes
reed marshes,
constantly swept
one could
across the
clearly
water
see the
surface.
battlefield on
He
the
couldn't
lake.
figure out
The battle
who
was
could
still in
pose
full
such
swing,
a great threat,
and the sounds
he
of killing
even had
could
the
be
feeling
heard.
that he was
Black,
facing smoke
ye.
billowed. When
And that
was
was
the smoke from
fighting
the burning boats.
the aura
There
he
was a
emitted
deep
was a
layer
little
of mud in the
threatening.
reeds. When
But
a
the
practitioner
crisscrossing
reached
roots of
a
the
certain
reeds were
level,
enough
to support
their
Lei
senses
Xingfeng's
would
weight.
become
He
extremely
watched the
sensitive.
battle quietly.
Of course,
The
if the
sense of
opponent was
threat
too strong,
grew stronger
they would
and
not be able to
stronger.
sense it.
As the battle became more and more brutal, more and more practitioners joined in. The addition of these practitioners was a disaster for normal people. Very quickly, the practitioners from both sides started fighting. To be able to stop the practitioners, one had to be a practitioner himself. Wan Luan Shi against Wan Luan Shi, Mill Wheel Master against Mill Wheel Master. Only the true masters did not come out. An extremely sharp whistling sound faintly came from extremely far away in the sky. Because Lei Xingfeng was holding his breath, he could hear it very clearly. But the people fighting on the water surface could not hear it and continued fighting. The whistling sound became louder and louder. Lei Xingfeng also reacted. This was the sound of someone flying at high speed in the sky. In his mind, anyone who could fly was definitely a powerful expert. Even if he condensed 3 true ring bodies and became a true Luanine master, it was still impossible for him to fly. It could be imagined that those who could fly were much stronger than him. A red line appeared in the west. In just a few seconds, the whistling sound suddenly became louder. This time, the people fighting on the lake all looked up, and the battle gradually weakened. Some people cried out, some took the opportunity to launch a sneak attack, and some looked at the sky in a daze. Among them, the practitioners all stopped fighting. They knew better than normal people what kind of existence could fly in the sky. The red line suddenly stopped, and a human figure appeared. Just like that, he suddenly stopped in the air, causing the people on the lake to cry out in surprise. Another light appeared. This time it was a golden line. Lei Xingfeng was very clear that the red line was of the fire attribute, and the golden line was of the earth attribute. These two people's strength was terrifyingly high. To be able to fly, Lei Xingfeng began to guess their strength. With his strength, he couldn't see through their cultivation level, but he had a basic judgment. Any practitioner who could fly must have at least 6 true ring bodies. In other words, these two were at least true Yin masters. A true Yin master was already a high-level martial artist. Normal practitioners would have to look up to experts of this level. They could easily take care of a small to medium-sized sect without worrying about revenge. Lei Xingfeng remained motionless in the mud, peeking through the reeds. He suppressed his qi to the minimum, hoping that the other party wouldn't discover him. The golden line paused in the sky, and a human figure appeared. The two figures stopped, and without saying a word, both of them attacked at the same time. More accurately, the fire attribute practitioner attacked the earth attribute practitioner. A fireball the size of a soccer ball flew out. The earth attribute practitioner clenched his fist slightly, as if to demonstrate his strength. He raised his fist, and suddenly a golden shield appeared in front of his fist. Boom! The scarlet fireball hit the shield, causing a shocking explosion. The Earth Attribute Practitioner was directly sent flying towards the reeds where Lei Xingfeng was hiding. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but curse in his heart. This attack caused the fireball to explode, causing countless small sparks to fly and fall. The people below didn't care. The sparks were too small, not worth paying attention to. Who would have thought that when the sparks landed on the boats, regardless of whether they were big or small, they would immediately burst into flames. Moreover, those flames couldn't be extinguished. What a joke! Unless one used Ainli to destroy the flames, there was no way to extinguish them. When the flames landed on the surface of the lake, they also burst into flames, burning on the surface of the water. In an instant, countless people danced in the flames. The remaining people saw that they couldn't extinguish the flames on the boats, so they all jumped into the lake. In a moment, only a few boats were left. The rest were completely annihilated. At least 1,000 people were burned to death. Just the aftermath alone was enough to make both sides suffer. Lei Xingfeng squinted his eyes and observed. The Fire Attribute Practitioner was a young woman. Her appearance couldn't be seen clearly. After all, she was high up in the sky, and her entire body was red. She wore a red dress, like a fairy floating in the air. The other Earth Attribute Practitioner was a young woman wearing golden armor. Her appearance also couldn't be seen clearly. Even though Lei Xingfeng had 3 true ring bodies and was a true Luanine master, he still couldn't see clearly. The only thing he could feel was that this wasn't an old person, but a young one. The two didn't even care about the people below and wantonly started a huge battle. Lei Xingfeng was shocked to the extreme. He could instantly tell that these were 2 women, and 2 young women at that. What he couldn't understand was how these 2 women could be so strong, to the point that it was boundless. The 2 continued to exchange blows, causing the area below to become even wider. Even the area where Lei Xingfeng was affected. A few sparks fell, forcing Lei Xingfeng to immediately jump into the lake and swim along the reed marsh. In an instant, the reed marsh that he was hiding in was set ablaze. The wind borrowed the strength of the fire, and the fire helped the wind. In a few breaths, the fire spread out. Lei Xingfeng looked back and knew that his boat was finished. With this kind of fire, the boat wouldn't be able to escape and would soon be engulfed by the fire. As the 2 of them fought, they began to curse each other. Their voices were extremely loud and clear. "Qi Meiyun, that's enough. Big bastard. If you're not afraid of Master's punishment, then continue to fight. Yin Yao, you little bastard. I won't let you go." The one in the red dress was Yin Yao, and the woman in the armor was Qi Meiyun. Lei Xingfeng felt the heat on his back, and his heart was extremely unhappy. He was also shocked. If these 2 were already so abnormal, then how terrifying would the master behind them be? The 2 exchanged a few more blows, and then chased each other away. Below them, cries of pain could be heard. No matter which side it was, they had suffered heavy losses, including cultivators. Low-level cultivators were caught in the fire, and even if they jumped into the water, they would still be burned alive. There was no way for them to escape. Lei Xingfeng swam to the entrance of the burning reed, and as expected, he saw that his boat was also on fire. Shaking his head slightly, Lei Xingfeng could only go over and put away the paddle. This thing was made of pure steel, so it was still intact. Lei Xingfeng's gaze was focused on the remaining boats. One must know that the total number of boats from both sides was close to 3,000, and only a few hundred boats were left. There were more than 30,000 people, and only a few thousand were left. The casualties were really heavy. However, Xian Feng didn't have the slightest bit of sympathy. This group of people had left a bad impression on him from the start, so he didn't need to be courteous. He quickly swam towards the remaining small boats. his speed as fast as a giant fish, drawing a white line on the lake as he quickly approached the small boats. After a while, Lei Xingfeng saw a small boat. He immediately jumped out of the water and landed on the bow of the boat. On this small boat, there were more than 100 people, and all of them were like drowned rats squeezed together. Lei Xingfeng said, "Everyone, jump." The people on the boat were instantly enraged, and all of their anger was directed at Lei Xingfeng. Each of them held their weapons and charged over. Chapter 102. Lei Xingfeng stomped his foot, and an electric arc spread out like a net, covering the entire boat in an instant. Since the boat was filled with water, and everyone climbed out of the water, the electric current was transmitted smoothly. Lei Xingfeng did not want to kill anyone. He just released an extremely ordinary electric current. Everyone enjoyed the electric shock, and the entire boat felt as if they had fallen into icy water. Everyone began to tremble violently, and those who were close to the boat even let out miserable cries. Lei Xingfeng said indifferently, "Do you want to jump in yourselves, or do you want me to help you?" Those people jumped into the lake one by one, their faces pale. They were not stupid. They could tell at a glance that this person was a cultivator, and a powerful one at that. The commotion immediately alerted the others, and 2 small boats quickly came over. A cultivator stood at the bow of the boat, and as soon as he got close, he saw Lei Xingfeng clearly. His face suddenly changed, and he said, "Go back, all of you go back." One Yuzhou saw Lei Xingfeng and knew that things were not good. It was just a small boat, and he already knew that Lei Xingfeng's boat must have been burned, so he came over to snatch the boat. Lei Xingfeng nodded. This one Yuzhou was quite tactful, and since this was the case, he would not find fault with him. He came to the stern of the boat, kicked away the original paddle, and took out his own steel paddle, and installed it at the stern of the boat, planning to leave immediately. The whistling sound came from afar again. This time, even Lei Xingfeng could not help but curse. He put away the paddle and dove into the water. Qi Meiyun and Yinyao appeared again, and it was another earth-shattering battle. What fell were not sparks, but large amounts of flames. This time, even Lei Xingfeng had to use Lei Yin to protect himself. The entire lake was like a layer of oil, and the flames were about to boil the water. All the remaining boats were burned, including the one that Lei Xingfeng had snatched. Not a single boat was left, and as for those people, none of them escaped. Lei Xingfeng saw a person desperately struggling, and he realized that person was one Yuzhou, the only one left. Slowly, one Yuzhou stopped struggling and gradually turned into ashes. Only then did the flames extinguish, and Lei Xingfeng felt a chill in his heart. "Enough! You 2 little girls, are you done yet?" A shout came from the air. Lei Xingfeng looked up, and an old man and a young woman appeared. The old man's long beard fluttered in the wind. He was dressed in white and had a head full of white hair. He was standing on a strange beast. The woman beside him was dressed in a light green dress. She giggled and said, "All right, don't be angry. It's not like you don't know that they are 2 little enemies." He. Qi Meiyun and Yinyao saluted in the air. Master's wife." Their voices sounded like they were acting coquettishly. Lei Xingfeng stared at them, dumbfounded. He could not see through their cultivation, and he could not even feel their existence. However, he could feel the monstrous ferocity of the monster. When he looked up, the monster's 2 eyes were also staring at him. Lei Xingfeng felt like he was hit by a heavy hammer, and he almost spat out blood. Lei Yin automatically protected its master, blocking the invisible impact. There's still one alive. The old man looked around in shock, and this one glance shocked him again. He said, Xiao Yun, bring the child up, don't scare him. Qi Meiyun was the armored woman, a cultivator of the earth element. According to Lei Xingfeng's estimation, she was at least a true Yin master with 6 true ring bodies. Catching him would be easier than catching a chicken, so he didn't struggle at all and was directly brought up onto the monster. The first impression the old man gave him was that he was unfathomable. His face was expressionless, and other than his white hair, his skin was similar to a young man's. The woman beside him was extremely beautiful and had a heroic aura. She had sharp eyebrows, phoenix eyes, and naturally red lips. She had a natural smile on her face, which meant that even if she didn't smile, she would still smile. The 2 female disciples were also extremely beautiful. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly to himself. These beauties, just from the aftermath of the battle, killed 30,000 people and burned 3,000 ships. The old man stared at Lei Xingfeng, and after a while he said, "Who is your master?" Lei Xingfeng didn't have a master, and he knew that his Yi had enemies all over the world. How could he be willing to tell the truth? He said, "I don't have a master." The woman beside the old man asked, "How old are you?" Lei Xingfeng was extremely honest. In front of absolute strength, don't try to challenge them. This was an iron rule. He said, 17. Then he added, "Just turned 17. The old man asked, "How long have you been training?" Lei Xingfeng said, "A year." His cultivation couldn't be hidden from the eyes of the 4. They were all much higher than him. The old man's snow-white eyebrows twitched. A year, 3 true ring bodies, a true Luanine master, and he could already see clearly that this child was about to reach the 4th true ring body. That was a great, true Luanine master. How did he train? And he didn't even have a master. This was simply unimaginable. Qi Meiyun said, "That's impossible. A year of training and 3 true ring bodies. A true Luanine master. Master, this is too fake." The old man reached out and pressed down on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder. In that instant, Lei Xingfeng felt as if he was being seen through, but he cleverly didn't move. After a while, the old man's face finally showed a trace of surprise. Only your great senior brother can compare to him, and even your great senior brother isn't as strong as him. This time, Qi Meiyun, Yin Yao, and the woman beside the old man all showed a shocked expression. Lei Xingfeng guessed that this great senior brother must be very strong. The old man said, "Since you don't have a master, then follow me, and I believe that I have the strength to be your master." Lei Xingfeng couldn't say anything, he couldn't explain, and he couldn't refuse. Luckily, he had the experience of 2 lives. He knew what to do and what not to do. He almost didn't hesitate to say, "Yes, master." Hearing this, the old man's face showed a very satisfied expression. He slowly said, "My principle is that I don't have any principles. Living is my principle. If I die, then I don't have any principles. Of course, if you feel that master isn't satisfied, you can also leave." Lei Xingfeng listened in shock. What the hell was this? The old man looked at the dazed Lei Xingfeng and couldn't help but laugh. He said, "Child, what's your name?" "I'm Gucci." Qi Meiyun and Yin Yao couldn't help but blink. This unreliable master. He had already acknowledged him as his master, but he still didn't know the child's name. The woman beside the old man giggled. She was gently patted on the head by the old man and said, "What's so funny? You'll be his master's wife in the future. Be more serious, or the little guy will look down on you. By the way, your master's wife is Tanya." Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly and said, My name is Lei Xingfeng. He had no choice but to acknowledge Gucci as his master. This Gucci's aura was too strong, much stronger than the old man thunderstorm. He simply couldn't resist in his heart. Tanya said, "Why didn't you call me?" Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly and said, "Hello, master's wife." Tanya smiled and said, "Hey, good boy. Hee 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 hee." As if she had taken advantage of him, she suddenly looked very happy. Qi Meiyun said, "I'm your fourth senior sister, Qi Meiyun." Yin Yao said, "I'm your sixth senior sister, Yin Yao." Lei Xingfeng was speechless. The two of them fought to the death, and they were actually sisters. "Greetings, fourth senior sister, sixth senior sister." Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to offend either of them. These two women were like two female lunatics when they fought, and their curses were extremely unpleasant to the ears. The two of them didn't treat Lei Xingfeng badly because Lei Xingfeng's aptitude was too frightening. They didn't want to have another powerful enemy in the future, so they treated Lei Xingfeng quite well. Lei Xingfeng asked, "Master, what sect are we from?" He estimated that with the old man's strength, it should be a super sect. Gucci said, "What sect? We don't have a sect. I am a sect. Don't care what sect it is. That thing will only harm people. Let's go back first." With a tap of his finger, they entered the void and instantly appeared in another place. Lei Xingfeng suddenly understood that they didn't need to go through the Luan spot and directly entered the ancient Luan passage. This old man's strength was too frightening. What was this place? In the wilderness, even the trees couldn't grow big. There were countless weeds and all kinds of beasts. Groups of beasts ran past, and when they met a lone beast, whether it was a ferocious beast or a wild beast, they would rush forward and tear it apart. Lei Xingfeng looked at the wilderness and was stunned. This place wasn't as good as his hometown in the barbarian gathering continent. At least Tiger Cliff Castle was still beautiful, and although there were more barbarians, it was rich in resources. This place looked like a remote and desolate place where even rabbits don't shit. There were all kinds of wild beasts, most of which he didn't recognize. Qi Meiyun let out a roar, and all the wild beasts and vicious beasts immediately fled in fear. In just a few seconds, the surroundings were completely silent. Qi Meiyun giggled and said, "You still remember me? Hee hee, they all ran away." Yin Yao grinned with a look of disdain. Gucci said, "All right, you two are so naughty, let's go." He waved his hand to let the strange beast leave, and like everyone else, they walked forward. Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "Why are we flying?" Gucci said, "Don't you feel the difference here?" Chapter 103. Lei Xingfeng said, "There's nothing different. That's not right. My body seems to have gotten heavier." Tanya giggled and said, "Little brat, you're really slow. And that's right, you should be a true Luanine master. Hee hee, this little bit of gravity is nothing." Back then, Mei Yun and little Yao Yao crawled down the moment they came in. Ha! She suddenly burst into laughter, as if she had thought of something interesting. Gucci said, all right, be careful not to choke." Tanya was originally fine, but after hearing his words, she choked and coughed repeatedly. "Cough, cough, cough, cough. You bad guy, you're bullying me again. Cough, cough." Gucci gently patted her back and said, "Look, you choked. I told you to be careful, but you didn't listen." Tanya made threatening gestures and knocked on Gucci's chest. That coquettish look made Lei Xingfeng shiver uncontrollably. This was too nauseating. The two senior sisters acted as if they didn't see anything, looking straight ahead, as if there was a beautiful flower in front of them that they couldn't take their eyes off. Gucci gently hugged Tanya's waist and said, all right, it's not good for the child to see this." Lei Xingfeng's face was full of black lines. It seemed like he was the only child here, Was this for me to hear? I'd better play dead. He also looked straight ahead,
They had
as if there was
entered
a pile of golden rings in front of him. This forest was also very
for a while.
strange. But in
At
Lei
first, the
Xingfeng's
trees
heart,
were short
his
and
master
thick,
and
but
master's
after
wife
walking
had
for a
dropped
while,
by many
the
levels.
trees began to grow
He
taller.
silently followed
He also
his master
found that the gravity
and
began
master's
to
wife,
change.
This
as if
path
it had
wasn't
returned
difficult,
to normal.
but he didn't
Gucci
know
grabbed
that all
Lei
of
Xingfeng's arm
Gucci's
and said,
disciples
"Okay, let's
followed
fly
him
back
to the encampment.
They
He
immediately
knew how
rose
many
into the air
genius
and flew
disciples
towards
cried
the
the
mountain.
entire way.
At lightning
Their
speed,
bodies suddenly
Lei
became
Xingfeng
several
found
times
that the mountain
heavier,
was very far
and they
away,
still had to walk
and that the
for half a
mountain
day.
was very big.
If they hadn't
As they got
cultivated
closer,
before,
the
it
mountain
would
was
definitely be a
actually
disaster.
endless.
There
Along
were
the
5
way,
peaks.
Xian
From
Feng's
afar,
heart
it
was
looked
in a
like
mess.
they were gathered
He had
together.
no choice but
Only
to
when
become
they
a
got
disciple.
closer did they
He had
realize
no
that there were
choice but to
actually
follow his
5
master.
peaks.
The
Even
main
he himself
peak
felt
towered
confused.
into the clouds.
He didn't know where
Lei
this place
Xingfeng
was.
couldn't help
He didn't know
but
where
open his
old
old
man
man
went.
After
And
a while,
he couldn't
said,
find his little
"This
sister.
mountain is too
If he
big."
had been in Wanxi continent, he
Meiyan
might
said,
have had a chance
"After
to
we
find
go
them.
in, but
It
now
will be
he was
even
in
bigger."
despair.
Lei
Lei
Xingfeng
Xingfeng
said
secretly
stupidly.
sighed.
Oh,
He knew
Yinyao
that
said,
unless his strength
big my
increased
ass.
greatly,
Meiyan curled her
he
lips
wouldn't have a chance
and
to
said,
go out.
"You're small.
At this time,
so don't complain
he
about
could
other
only
people
stay
saying it's
here
big."
peacefully.
Yinyao's face
As for the
suddenly
boat that he
changed.
promised to Zhou
Just as she
Xian,
was about to say
it had
something,
already
Gucci
been
said,
burned.
"You
And he
two
couldn't
naughty
go
people,
back.
are you
He
trying
could
to
only
anger
wait
your
for a
master to
chance
death?"
to repay
The
him
two
in the
suddenly
future.
stopped talking.
Soon,
Lei Xingfeng was
found a
confused
mountain in front
and
of him.
didn't know what the two
This
were
mountain
doing.
was very
Tang,
strange.
you suddenly
It was
made
a
a
lonely
chee-chee
peak,
sound,
and it was very
Lei
tall.
Xingfeng
It
understood
occupied
that
a
it was
large
the sound
area,
of her
and it
trying
was
to
still
hold back her
surrounded by
laughter.
rolling hills.
However,
As they
she
got
soon
closer,
stopped.
Yin
Lei
Yao's face turned
Xingfeng
red,
found that this
and
mountain was
Qi
very
Meiyan
big.
had a proud
He
look on her
couldn't see the
face.
sides of the mountain.
Anyway, Lei Xingfeng was completely confused. However, he also had his own way of adapting. If he didn't understand, he would just ignore it. Because they were all flying, their speed was really fast. In just a moment, they were flying up the mountain. Soon, they entered a canyon. Lei Xingfeng actually saw a house at the bottom of the canyon. A road extended along the canyon. He asked curiously, "Below, who lives here?" Tang Yu explained, "That's the town where the slaves live. The place where we live is just ahead." Along the way, Xian Feng not only saw a few small towns, he also saw quite a few farmlands and plantations. He gradually realized that this place should be a whole by itself. After a while, the few of them once again flew up and arrived at the main peak. The main peak's terrain was very steep. Most of it was cliffs. It was impossible to go up without knowing how to fly. A huge platform appeared. The few of them landed. The platform was empty. Gucci said, "Okay, let's go in." Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "Go in? Go in where?" Gucci smiled and said, "Follow me and you'll know." He held Tanya's hand and stepped forward. Suddenly, the air in front of them distorted like water waves. In an instant, Gucci and Tanya disappeared. Lei Xingfeng was stunned, but he still stepped forward subconsciously. His body paused for a moment. Then his eyes lit up. Lei Xingfeng looked
was a
back.
different world.
He was actually on a lawn. There were many flowers and trees around the lawn. The sky was blue. Then he saw Qi Meiyun and Yin Yao suddenly appear on the lawn. It was as if they appeared out of thin air. He was so scared that his heart was beating wildly. This had completely overturned all of his knowledge. At this moment, he faintly felt that it was not a bad thing to have a master. Qi Meiyun giggled and said, "Little junior brother is scared." He. Gucci smiled and said, "When you first came, you were even worse than a foam." Yin Yao said, "Master, did she pee herself?" Qi Meiyun shouted, "Yin Yao, you're the one who's pissing your pants. You. She turned around and ran to Gucci's side. She grabbed his arm and shook it with all her strength. "Master, look, she's the one who's causing trouble." Gucci laughed and said, "All right, you two naughty people. Can't you let me be less worried?" Lei Xingfeng felt a headache. These two senior sisters seemed to be enemies, but also not. What kind of relationship was this? He was confused. Walking out of the lawn, he saw
two rows of people dressed in white standing on both sides of the road. When they saw them coming, they all knelt down and saluted, "Welcome, Master." Lei Xingfeng slightly observed and could not help but be shocked. These were not normal people, but practitioners. The weakest was at least 1,000 Luan master. The leader was actually a mill wheel master. Gucci said, "Get up, go, and bring the chair over." The so-called chair was similar to the sliding pole in Lei Xingfeng's previous life. It was a reclining chair carried by two people. Lei Xingfeng sat on it. Immediately, two people in white lifted it up. The five of them sat on their own chairs and walked along the road. Along the way, Lei Xingfeng saw countless people in white. When they saw them, they all knelt down to welcome them. Only when they left did they stand up and move. Seeing this, he was stunned. He did not know where he had run to. In his heart, he was confused. Why were the rules here so strict? Tanya seemed to see Lei Xingfeng's confusion. She said, "Afong, don't be confused. They are all servants. Here, only we are the masters." Lei Xingfeng was even more confused. What was this place? Gucci said, "Don't think too much. Soon you will get used to it. This place will be very comfortable." Lei Xingfeng gradually became silent. He needed to understand and adapt. This place was too strange and strange. He did not know anything and did not know anything. It was better to speak less. Lei Xingfeng was once again shocked by the enormous building community. The exquisite buildings were all built with large pieces of white jade. He could not use words to describe this kind of building. The style of the building was absolutely unfamiliar. It gave him a feeling of grandeur and exquisiteness. There were many building materials he had never seen before. However, there was one thing he was very familiar with. It was the large pieces of glass. He did not know how this place produced such transparent glass walls. Lei Xingfeng could only laugh at himself in his heart. All right. I am just a country bumpkin. I don't know anything." Gucci said, "All right, Meiyun and Yao Yao go back. Remember, don't fight anymore. You are not allowed to go out during this period of time." Qi Meiyun and Yin Yao both agreed with a worried expression and left. Gucci said, "All right, Afong, come with me to see the founder." Lei Xingfeng said in surprise, there is a founder?" Gucci slapped him on the head and said, "Nonsense! Of course there is a grandmaster. You have a master now, and so do I." Tanya giggled and said, "Don't be so strange." This shouldn't be strange." Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly and said in his heart, "This is strange enough." After passing through a few arched doors and a few circular corridors, they arrived at a large courtyard. Along the way, there were countless strange trees and flowers. Lei Xingfeng almost did not recognize any of them. Following the white jade stairs, they arrived at a gigantic glass house. Even the roof was made of glass. It was beautiful, with a long white veil hanging down from the ceiling. Quickly, they entered the glass house. The white jade floor was inlaid with gold and silver threads, polished to an extremely glossy level. Around the room, there were a few attendants standing with their hands by their sides. Here, Xian Feng saw a large aquarium. He was curious as to why there was such a thing here. A few strange fish were swimming in the aquarium. These fish had a strange kind of beauty. Their bodies flickered with multicolored splendor. They were about a foot long and had a string of flag-like fins extending from their heads to their tails. As they swam, they brought up a string of bubbles. Chapter 104. The aquarium tank was a partition, and its function was similar to a screen. Turning around the aquarium tank, Lei Xingfeng saw a person sitting on the ground. In front of him was a low table. That person was wearing a bright red robe. He didn't know what material the robe was made of, but the color was dazzling. It was actually covered with fine golden threads. If one looked carefully, they could see that the threads were all kinds of flowers. His hair was black, and he had an extremely beautiful face. He had long, thin eyebrows and thick eyelashes. His beauty definitely surpassed that of Master's wife, Tanya. That face was definitely the face of a young woman. It was so delicate that it could be broken by the wind. Lei Xingfeng was once again shocked speechless. Was this person a man or a woman? Could it be that the founder was a woman? Gucci and Tanya bowed down and said in unison, "Greetings, Master." Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to stand still. He also bowed down and said, "Disciple greets the founder." That person slowly opened his eyes and casually glanced at the three of them. Lei Xingfeng suddenly felt a chill in his heart, and in an instant, all the uncomfortable feelings disappeared. "All right, get up. Is this your new disciple?" The voice was very neutral, but it had a magnetic quality. It was very pleasant to the ears, but Lei Xingfeng still couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman's voice. Gucci said very respectfully, "Yes, Master. This is my new disciple." The founder said, "Very good aptitude. Little guy, what's your name?" Lei Xingfeng said, "My name is Lei Xingfeng." The founder said, "This name is not bad. Your master's original name was terrible, and I changed it when he came to me. All right, you can leave now. Little guy, if you have time, come and see me, okay?" Xian Feng agreed. He had been looking at this strange ancestor the whole time. After he finished speaking, he actually winked at Xian Feng. His looks were definitely at the level of causing the downfall of a country. With just a wink, Xian Feng felt a wave of dizziness. He couldn't help but curse silently. Ancestor is actually winking at me? Damn, this founder. Is he a man or a woman? Could it be that he's neither male nor female? The three of them left. Lei Xingfeng's heart was still in a mess. Soon, a large group of servants knelt down to greet them. Gucci said, "Where's the butler?" Someone immediately reported, "The butler went to another courtyard and will be back soon." Gucci said, "Since you're here, come to my place," bringing Lei Xingfeng, Gucci, and Tanya to another large courtyard. This was an extremely simple courtyard. The ground was just a lawn without any flowers. The house was also very simple. It was completely empty on all sides. 4 jade pillars supported a rectangular platform. On the platform, there was a small room. That was the master and mistress bedroom. There were no stairs to go up, so they had to fly up. Lei Xingfeng endured and endured, but in the end, he couldn't hold it in anymore. He didn't dare to ask Gucci, so he whispered to Tanya, "Master, founder, this, that, he is, she is." He didn't know how to ask. Tanya said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "I thought you could hold it in for a long time." It turns out that there are times when you can't hold it in. Gucci said, "Don't ask a phone. Master's gender. I don't know either." Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but curse in his heart. Damn, this founder definitely had a personality. Tanya said with a smile, "We have a saying to describe your founder. You'll know what kind of person she is when you hear it." Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "What is it?" Tanya said, "Your founder is a woman among men, a man among women." Lei Xingfeng was suddenly speechless. He thought to himself, "Isn't this a typical transvestite? What the F*CK? The founder is actually a transvestite. She seems to be even more awesome than Dongfang Booby. Could this guy be a bisexual?" Thinking of this, he had goosebumps all over his body. He secretly wailed, "What the F***CK is this place? What kind of people are they?" Gucci said, "Don't talk nonsense. Master can hear it." Tanya said, "Master won't punish me because of this. Hee, Master is the most fun." Lei Xingfeng decided not to think about this anymore. It didn't matter if she was a man or a woman, as long as she was a human, it was fine. He was here to become a disciple, not to have a blind date. He quickly felt relieved. He was here to become a disciple, not to bother about whether the founder was a man or a woman. This had nothing to do with him. His master's house was simple, but extremely large. The ground was also made of white jade and was extremely smooth. Around it stood 100 servants, many of whom were strong enough that even Xian Feng couldn't see through them. He was shocked to discover that some of them had at least 4 true ring bodies, and they were actually here as servants. It was truly shocking. A servant reported, "The head butler is here." It was a tall and very handsome middle-aged man. He wore a sky blue robe and walked in with his head held high. He was different from the servants. He didn't kneel, but bowed and said, "Master, I'm here." Gucci nodded and said, "AI8, this is my disciple, and direct disciple, Lei Xingfeng. You can call him a Feng." Then he said to Lei Xingfeng, "A Feng, this is our head butler, AI8. He has 9 rings and an ashen seal. You can call him AI Bo. He's not a servant, he's a retainer." AI8's face showed a warm smile and said, "Congratulations, Master. You've taken in another good disciple." Gucci said, "There are some rules here. Tell a Feng. Also, arrange a courtyard for a Feng to live in temporarily. Build a new residence. Ask a Feng what he likes. In addition,
and build
choose
according to
10
his
bodyguards
instructions.
who have at least
Give
6
ring
ring
sage
4
body.
retainers
and
and
give him
240
2
servants. 8 ring sage bodyguards. Tanya said, "Give a Feng a butler. With so many people suddenly, he won't know how to manage." Gucci nodded and said, "Give him a smart butler. A Feng is still young. Don't let him be wronged." Xian Feng listened with his mouth agape. The surprise, shock, and strangeness along the way had already made him numb. But now that he was here, he was still shocked. He was a single person, yet he was assigned so many servants, guards, and even servants and housekeepers. Luckily, he had lived 2 lives, and although he was shocked, he controlled himself well, maintaining a calm appearance. In reality, he was already at a loss of what to do. The amount of information was a bit too much, and it was all in a range that he wasn't familiar with. He needed some time to digest it. AI8 nodded and left with Lei Xingfeng. Gucci called from behind, "A Feng, come over when you've settled down. If there's anything, you can ask your butler to do it." Lei Xingfeng nodded. At this time, he was still very grateful to this master. AI8 took Lei Xingfeng to a courtyard. There were many courtyards here. Lei Xingfeng was sure that there were at least hundreds of big courtyards here. Each courtyard was magnificent. Anyway, they were much better than the villas in Lei Xingfeng's previous life. This courtyard was a little simple. It was just a house with a large number of neatly trimmed trees and flowers. AI8 didn't take Lei Xingfeng into the room. Instead, he went to the lawn and ordered people to spread a carpet on the lawn, set up a short table, and bring some fresh fruits. After inviting Lei Xingfeng to sit down, AI8 began to introduce the specific situation here, such as what were retainers, guards, servants, and housekeepers. Lei Xingfeng didn't know much about these. In his 2 lives, he had never used a servant, let alone a guard, retainer, or housekeeper. To put it simply, a servant was a person with no status. Their life and death depended on their master's thoughts. A retainer had a very high status, followed by a butler, and then a guard. Everything here was decided by Lei Xingfeng. Except for listening to Master Gucci and Madame Tanya, he didn't need to pay attention to anyone else. Even his senior brother couldn't control him. Of course, the founder had the greatest power. Lei Xingfeng liked this very much. He didn't want too many people to control him. It was best to be free. AI Pa Dao. This is a secret space, a space opened by the old master. It's a very complete place. However, if you want to go out, you need to have at least a sixth ring true body. Lei Xingfeng was secretly anxious. This place was not suitable for cultivation. It was best for him to cultivate in a thunderstorm so that he could grow quickly. He asked, "If I want to go out and my cultivation hasn't reached the sixth ring true body, what should I do?" AI Pa Dao. You just need to ask the housekeeper to arrange it for you. Lei Xingfeng suddenly thought of a problem and said, "By the way, why didn't fourth senior sister and sixth senior sister bring their housekeepers and retainers?" AI Pa Dao sighed and said, "The two of them like to fight. Of course, they can't bring their retainers and guards to fight. If they bring their retainers and guards to fight, that would be killing each other. They wouldn't choose to do that." Xian Feng was speechless. They just liked to fight. At the reed marshes, they indirectly killed 30,000 people and even burned his own boat. If it wasn't for his quick advancement in the thunderstorm and his grandpa's lightning stamp, even if he didn't die, he would still be half dead. AI Pa Dao, what kind of residence do you want? I can arrange for people to build it. Lei Xingfeng shook his head. He didn't have this plan at all. It was fine as long as he could live here. When he was on the boat, he also slept very soundly. He didn't care about the environment at all. He said, "No need, this place is good. There's no need to build a house." AI Pa Dao. A phone. Here, living here is a kind of status. If you don't have a status, you won't have a choice and will be looked down upon by your subordinates. Lei Xingfeng said, "Could it be that the more luxurious it is, the higher the status?" AI Pa Dao. That's not the case. The more unique it is, the higher others will look down on it. Lei Xingfeng muttered to himself, "What does this mean? Okay, it's not that I don't have any ideas. Maybe I don't know about other things, but when it comes to uniqueness, I'm definitely more unique than you guys." Chapter 105. This was a garden building, one that Lei Xingfeng remembered from his previous life. It had a small bridge over flowing water, white walls, black tiles, and carved railings. It had an antique feel. After the construction was completed, AI-8 was extremely surprised. This building was extremely beautiful, with rich layers, especially the rockery, flowing water, trees, and small bridges in the courtyard. It was even more magnificent. The entire garden building took less than 10 days to complete. Lei Xingfeng was extremely impressed. The efficiency of the people here surprised him. Any idea, as long as it was mentioned, someone would quickly do it. A model only took half a day, and then it took less than 8 days to build it. Another day to decorate it. That speed was like flying. When the garden building was completed, not only was Master Gucci full of praise, even the ancestral master came to take a look. It was obvious that he was also excited. Xian Feng didn't expect that just by building a house, he would be in the limelight for once. But after the garden was built, Lei Xingfeng regretted. This building reminded him of many things from his previous life. Therefore, not long after living here, he moved to the courtyard next door. The garden was empty, but Yin Yao and Qi Meiyan often came to live here. Both of them liked this building, and because of this, they constantly argued. In just a few days, Lei Xingfeng gradually understood the situation of this secret space. The so-called secret space and the hidden Luan space were two different concepts. The hidden Lewin space could be moved by people, but the secret space
Every
could not
direct
be moved
disciple
after it
was
was the
opened.
master here. The secret
And their
space could be
status
used
was at
as
the
a
top
living
of the
area.
pyramid.
In this
Although the
case,
ancestral
tens
master,
of thousands of people
Wu
could
Yang,
live in it.
had the
This
highest
secret
status
space
here.
was
The
inherited
person
by
in charge
Gucci.
was Gucci.
After several
There were
generations
some
of
things
management,
he would not interfere
this
with.
space had
One
developed
must
to be
know
very
that Wu
suitable
Yang
for
had
many
many
disciples.
This was also
and why
Gucci
the
was
ancestral
only
master
one of them.
stayed here for a
He
long
lived
time.
here.
The
because
ancestral
he
master
liked
was
the
called Wu
environment
Yang,
here.
a very mysterious guy.
Gucci was very
Gucci had a
respectful
total
to
of
him,
9 direct
making him feel
disciples.
very comfortable living
Lei
here.
Xingfeng was the
Of the
ninth
9
disciple,
direct disciples,
and there were 67
only
registered
5 were still
disciples.
here.
In
Fourth
addition,
senior sister
there
Chi
were more
Meiyun,
than
6,000
senior
sister
preparatory
Yin Yao,
disciples,
7th
and
senior
more than
brother
300
Teng Yuan,
retainers.
8th
Although
senior
there
sister
were
Miao
not
Ling,
as many
and
as
Lei
the disciples,
Xingfeng, number
their
9.
status was
As for
extremely
eldest senior
high.
brother Feng
They were
Chinzong,
only
second
slightly
senior
lower
brother
than the
Yuko,
direct disciples.
third senior brother
Of course,
Xan Zhaolin,
the retainers
and
had to be
fifth
very
senior
strong.
brother Bai Tianming.
There were more
They
guards,
were all out,
about 3 or
Lei
4,000
Xingfeng
of
also
them.
found out
As
that
for
the other
servants,
direct
there were
disciples
at least
tens of
4
thousands of
true
them.
ring bodies.
There were also
8
ordinary
senior
people
sister Miao
who were
Ling
even
was
worse
the only
than the
one
servants,
with 6
there were
true
even
ring.
more of them.
None of them were
about
easy to deal with.
hundreds of thousands
However,
of them.
of
They
these
all
8 senior
lived
brothers and
outside
sisters,
the secret treasure
the youngest
space.
was 30
There
years
was no
old,
difference
and
between
Lei
the
Xingfeng was
direct
only
disciples.
17.
Other
He was
than listening to
definitely
Gucci,
at the
there
level
was no
of a little
need
brother.
to pay attention
Even
to anyone
2
else.
lifetimes added together wouldn't be as comfortable as living here. For the first time, Lei Xingfeng enjoyed the treatment of being surrounded by a large group of people. He only needed to give the order and someone would immediately take care of it. He didn't need to do anything himself. Soon, Lei Xingfeng realized that if he wanted to enjoy himself, this was the best place. No wonder the ancestral master stayed here. It was too comfortable. But if he wanted to increase his strength and find Yi and his sister, he couldn't continue to enjoy himself here. After thinking for a few days, Lei Xingfeng decided to leave. However, before he left, he needed to search for resources related to his cultivation. Uncle Ai. Lei Xingfeng's housekeeper was a short, middle-aged man. He had a serious expression on his face all day long. His name was Ishanel, which was actually AI-32. All housekeepers had the surname AI. AI to AI Chi had died long ago, so AI-8 was the head housekeeper. Lei Xingfeng's housekeeper was AI-32, and his official name was Ishanel. Ishanel walked in and said, "A phone." He should have called him master, but Lei Xingfeng felt that it was too awkward and forced him to change it. Following his master's orders, Ishanel only called Lei Xingfeng a phone in private. If there were outsiders, he would still follow the rules. Lei Xingfeng said, "I'll go to master's place and arrange a car." Ishanel agreed and left with a few servants. Lei Xingfeng also had 10 bodyguards. Every time he went out, there would be 2 bodyguards following him. They were all extremely powerful experts. 8 true ring bodies and 2 true ring bodies were only bodyguards here. This kind of strength in the outside sex was definitely an ancestor-level expert. As for the 4 retainers, they were in charge of managing the household. Once Lei Xingfeng went out to establish his own power, these 4 retainers would be very important. Right now, they were living in the courtyard and didn't care about anything. Their main task was to cultivate. The bodyguards were divided into 2 groups. Each group had 5 people. 4 were true ring masters with 6 true ring bodies, and 1 was a true heart-in master with 8 true ring bodies. The 2 personal bodyguards were both true heart-in masters with 8 true ring bodies. 1 was called Tiger Love, and the other was called Mad Eagle. Lei Xingfeng didn't dare put on the airs of a master in front of these 2. He called one Uncle Tiger and the other Uncle Ling. Today, Uncle Ling was on duty, so Mad Eagle brought the 4 bodyguards to follow Lei Xingfeng. Retainers didn't need to follow their master unless the master gave the order. At this time, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't call his retainers. In fact, he didn't even want to bring his bodyguards, but he couldn't refuse them. He was used to it anyways. Ishanel came in and said, Phone, the car is ready. Are we leaving now? Lei Xingfeng nodded. And let's go now. Uncle Ing, let's go together. Mad Eagle nodded. The 4 bodyguards silently appeared. He was the personal bodyguard, so he always stood beside Lei Xingfeng. This guy was 2 meters tall, a head taller than Lei Xingfeng. Every time Lei Xingfeng saw him, he would complain in his heart. Why was he so tall? Standing beside this guy made him feel inferior. The so-called car was a cloud beast carrying a seat with a cover. It wasn't very similar to the cars Lei Xingfeng knew. Cloud beasts were flat beasts that could float at low altitudes. Before Lei Xingfeng came here, he had never seen one before. Even in the hidden space, these cloud beasts were very rare. Only a few people could ride them. It represented one's status and identity. Sitting in the car, the cloud beast slowly floated forward. It wasn't fast, but it was very stable. Beside the cloud beast were 2 rows of servants. In about 10 minutes, the cloud beast arrived at the courtyard of Gucci's residence. Someone had already gone in to report. After a while, AI 8 came out to greet them. AI Padao said, "Afam." Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "Uncle AI, I'm here to look for Master." AI Padao said, "Come in." He was very enthusiastic. Of course, this was only for the direct disciples. Lei Xingfeng's housekeeper brought a group of servants in through the side door. Lei Xingfeng, AI 8, and Mad Eagle walked in together. When Lei Xingfeng walked into the hall, AI 8 left with Mad Eagle. There was no need for personal guards in this place. If there was danger in front of Master, there was no safe place. Gucci was sitting alone. When he saw Lei Xingfeng come in, he smiled and said, "I think you should be here too," and said, "I'm not used to it." Gucci was stunned and said, "What's wrong? Who didn't take good care of you?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It's not that they didn't take good care of me, but they took good care of me too much. It's so comfortable. I don't want to do anything. Master, I don't want to stay here for too long. It's not good for my cultivation." Gucci laughed and said, "Good, you reacted so quickly. Haha, little guy, you're really interesting." Lei Xingfeng sat down cross-legged casually and said, "Master, I want to learn something." Gucci nodded and said, "The thunder cultivation method you learned before is still okay, but it's very rough. Well, I'll give you this star python record. Learn it first and fill in the basics. You can keep this star python record. Don't teach it to others without my permission. Remember, this is very important." Lei Xingfeng hesitated for a moment and nodded. "Okay, if I want to teach it to others, do I have to get Master's permission?" Gucci said, "Who do you want to teach it to? If you want to take a disciple, your strength is not enough." Lei Xingfeng really wanted to teach Yi what he learned, but he didn't know where Yi was. He said, "Okay, I'll learn it first. If there's anything I don't understand, I'll come back and ask." Gucci nodded and said, "Okay, you can come back and ask for guidance at any time. Also, if you want to go out and gain experience, just tell your housekeeper. He will arrange it." Lei Xingfeng said, "Got it, Master. I'll come back in a few days." He didn't stay any longer. He put away the star python record and got up to leave. Like a mouse falling into a rice jar, Lei Xingfeng was completely infatuated. He studied day and night and was completely immersed in the star python record. Many of the questions he encountered during cultivation were answered. This star python record recorded a large number of thunder cultivation methods. With one look, he knew that this star python record was specially prepared for him. Every 15 to 20 days, Lei Xingfeng would go to his master's place and ask a lot of questions. After answering them, he would go back and continue to work hard. He wasn't in a hurry to cultivate. Instead, he worked hard to learn everything recorded in the star python record. He didn't ask to be able to fight, but to understand. He originally planned to go out and travel, but after obtaining this star python record, Lei Xingfeng completely forgot about it. Chapter 106. As he studied deeper, Lei Xingfeng's questions became deeper and deeper. There were some strange ideas that even Gucci couldn't answer. At this time, Lei Xingfeng would go to his ancestor to find answers. Gradually, Lei Xingfeng not only went to find his master, but also went to his ancestor's place to harass him. Ancestor Wu Yang really liked this quick-witted disciple. Every time Lei Xingfeng came over, he would prepare many delicious dishes. The two ate and discussed at the same time. The atmosphere was very good. Today, Lei Xingfeng came over again. Wu Yang said, "What did you find out?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Ancestor, does condensing the ninth ring true body mean that one's cultivation reaches the peak?" Wu Yang suddenly laughed. Lei Xingfeng quickly lowered his head. He didn't dare to look at his ancestor's laughter. This guy was simply too demonic. When he laughed, he could steal a person's soul away. Peak ninth ring true body? Hee little guy, do you believe it? Lei Xingfeng slowly shook his head. He might have believed it before, but now he was full of doubts. Of course, he wouldn't believe it. Wu Yang said, condensing the ninth ring true body also means that the foundation is complete. This step is very important, but 99% of cultivators will stop at this step. They won't have the chance to take another step because crossing this step means transcending the mortal world. It's too difficult. Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "Ninth ring true body, what realm is it?" Wu Yang said, "True monarch, but that's too far away. It's not something you can understand now. Knowing it too early won't do you any good." Lei Xingfeng sucked in a breath of cold air. There really was more. True monarch? What was that? What level was it? Ancestor, tell me, what's after true monarch? Wu Yang laughed and scolded, "Heavenly monarch. AI, little brat, you're thinking too much. You only have 3 true ring bodies, a small true Luanine master. You haven't even reached the Enli conversion stage yet. Why are you thinking so much?" Lei Xingfeng said nonchalantly, "I'll reach ninth ring sage soon." He didn't know how others cultivated, but he knew that as long as he went into a thunderstorm and absorbed the lightning of nature, his advancement would be like flying. He didn't have to worry about it at all. Wu Yang raised his hand and gave him a slap. Of course, it was a very light slap. Blow as hard as you can," he said. Lei Xingfeng said, "Founder, I'm really not boasting. Advancing to the next level really isn't difficult." He really wasn't boasting. Ever since he started cultivating, he had never been troubled by his advancement. It was only because of his rapid advancement that he had no choice but to suppress his cultivation. Wu Yang sighed and said, I know. I don't know if this is good for you or not." Lei Xingfeng said, "It shouldn't be bad. Founder, don't scare me." Wu Yang said, "Who has the heart to scare you?" "Whatever. You're just a little freak. I've seen so many amazing little brats, but I've never seen one like you, only 17 years old, and you've already condensed 3 true ring bodies. Fuck, you've only cultivated for a year." Lei Xingfeng said, "Founder, you're swearing." Wu Yang said, "Is it strange?" Lei Xingfeng fiercely nodded. "It's very strange." Wu Yang suddenly laughed. "Little brat, You haven't seen me swearing yet. What's so strange about it? Don't be surprised. He laughed very boldly and charmingly. At this moment, Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to look at him. It wasn't because he was afraid of being seduced, but because he was afraid of being provoked. Lei Xingfeng said, "Founder, how many disciples do you have?" Wu Yang stopped laughing. After a while, he said, "In my life, I've taken in 7 disciples. Your master Guqi is the youngest." Lei Xingfeng said, "What about the other disciples?" Wuri said, "The eldest disciple is dead. He died in outer space. Back then, I had high hopes for him. The second and third disciples, they disappeared hundreds of years ago and never came back. No one knew if they were alive or dead. The 4th disciple tried to be brave and fought fiercely. He liked to kill. In the end, he was killed by an old man. Although I rushed over and killed them all, he didn't come back alive. Yes, the 5th disciple married your master. The 6th disciple became independent and inherited his own legacy." In other words, Wu Yang had a total of 7 disciples. At present, there were only 3 left. 2 of them were married, which was the current master's wife, and 1 was independent. No wonder the patriarch lived here. In addition to living a comfortable life, having 2 disciples by his side made him feel much better. At this moment, Lei Xingfeng could feel Wu Yang's disappointment. He comforted, "Founder, maybe 2nd and 3rd martial uncle are still alive. Since there's no news, there's still a possibility." With Wu Yang's experience, of course he knew that Lei Xingfeng was comforting him. He shook his head. Everyone has their own fortune and opportunities. Life or death, it doesn't matter. He had already seen through everything. Lei Xingfeng laughed bitterly, knowing that he couldn't persuade him. He said, "Right, what is outer space?" Wu Yang said that you don't have to worry about it. With your strength, you can't go there. To go there, you need to be at least 8th ring body. If you're not a true heart Yin master, you'll just be sending yourself to death. Lei Xingfeng said, "I don't want to go. I just want to understand." Wu Yang said, "Don't think about it for now. Wait until you reach 9th ring body and Ashen Seal Sage. Maybe you can try to go to the edge, but I don't approve of going in too deep. Actually, this place is not bad. There aren't many strong people, at most 5th, 6th, or 7th ring experts. You have guards. No one will dare to do anything to you. It's the safest place." Lei Xingfeng said, "Ayaya, it's not like a flower growing in a greenhouse. If it doesn't experience wind and rain, how can it bloom? Pah!" Lei Xingfeng held his head and said, "I'm going to be beaten silly." Wu Yang laughed and scolded, "Bah, flower my ass. What wind and rain? You have absolute strength. Who cares about wind and rain? Don't believe that nonsense. Many geniuses died like that before they even grew up. You want to die?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head. He didn't want to die. He hadn't lived enough. This world was wonderful, 100 times more wonderful than the last. Living to see the world was better than anything else. He said, Okay, I understand." Wu Yang said, "If you reach Tao Monarch, even if those sages have 9th ring bodies, they'll still be defeated. So, the most important thing is to grow up first. Also, remember, if you can't beat them, run away. Your family is full of experts. It's better to ask experts to fight for you than to fight with your life on the line. Don't be embarrassed. If you're embarrassed, you'll be the unlucky one." Lei Xingfeng listened, dumbfounded. He couldn't say that his ancestor was wrong, but why did it sound so awkward? AI 8 suddenly walked over and said, "Ancestor, something happened." Wu Yang said with an indifferent expression, "What happened?" AI Pa Dao said, "Little 3 was beaten. He's seriously injured." Wu Yang stood up and said, "Let's go take a look. Little guy, let's go together." Lei Xingfeng knew that the so-called Little Three was his third senior brother, Xian Zhaoluan. He hadn't seen Xian Zhaoluan since he came. Soon, they arrived at Guqi's courtyard. Lei Xingfeng followed Wu Yang all the way here. At Master's house, he saw Xian Zhaoluan for the first time. Xian Zhaoluan was an old man with wrinkles all over his face. He was bald, except for a circle of white hair at the back of his head. The most eye-catching part of his face was his big bulbous nose. At this time, his eyes were closed, his lips were dark purple, and his breath was weak. He looked like he was on the verge of death. Guqi and Tang stood up to welcome Master. Wu Yang asked, "What's going on?" Guqi said, "He was poisoned and fought with all his strength. After he was exhausted, the poison spread. He barely made it to our contact point before he was sent back. He almost died." His face was gloomy, and he couldn't hide his killing intent. Wu Yang said, "Let's save him first." Tanya took out a small bottle of medicine and poured it directly into Xian Zhaoluan's mouth. She said, "The antidote may not work. Let's suppress it first. I don't know if it will wake him up. Only then can we better understand what kind of poison he was poisoned with." Wu Yang was silent for a moment. He turned his wrist, and a small crystal bottle as thick as a finger appeared. There was an inch of green liquid inside. He said, "Give him a drop. Let's save his life first." Guqi said, Okay." Lei Xingfeng asked in a low voice, "AI, Bo, what kind of medicine is that?" AI 8 smiled bitterly and said, "It's sky green. That's sky green. As long as he's still breathing, a drop of sky green can save his life. This medicine has been peerless for a long time. Even the founder only had half a bottle." Guqi carefully pulled out a drop of sky green and dripped it into Xian Zhaoluan's mouth. Then he carefully returned the crystal bottle to Wu Yang. Even he didn't have this kind of medicine. It was too precious. After a few minutes, Xian Zhaoluan groaned and opened his eyes with difficulty. When he saw Guqi and the others, he was obviously relieved. Guqi whispered, "Xiao-san, what's going on? Who hit you?" Xian Zhaoluan groaned and opened his eyes with difficulty. When he saw Guqi and the others, he was obviously relieved. Guqi whispered, "Xiao-san, what's going on? Who hit you?" Xian Zhaoluan didn't seem to react for a while. After a while, a trace of confusion appeared on his face. He said slowly, "Master, Madam, the founder is also here. I'm back." "Ha ha." Tanya said, "Xiao-san, don't worry. You're already home." Lei Xingfeng felt awkward to be called Xiao-san, especially to a man. This kind of incongruity was even stronger. Xian Zhaoluan smiled bitterly and said, "My luck is good. Ha ha, I actually escaped." Guqi said, "Xiao-san, who did it?" Xian Zhaoluan said, "Master, don't worry about this. When I recover, I'll solve it myself." Guqi nodded and said, "Well, are they strong?" Xian Zhaoluan said, "Strong my ass. They King drugged me. If I hadn't reacted quickly at that time, I would have died there. A group of gutless rats. When I recover, I'll slaughter these bastards." Guqi and Tangyu were obviously relieved. Guqi said, "In that case, you should recuperate well. The founder gave you a drop of sky green, so there shouldn't be any sequelae. With the effect of sky green, no matter what kind of poison it is, it will be detoxified. You will recover in a few days. Chapter 107. Xian Zhaoluan exclaimed in surprise. Sky green. Ancestral Master, it's such a waste to use sky green. Wu Yang said in annoyance. You look like you're half dead, making your master worry. Do you think I would be reluctant to use a drop of sky green? You bastard, you dare to blame me? Also, I gave you so many guards. You bastard, can't you take one with you? You've suffered enough this time. Let's see if you can still be so arrogant in the future. Xian Zhaoluan hurriedly said, Ancestral Master, I don't dare to blame you. Sigh, I just can't bear to use it. Sky green can save a life at a critical moment. Then he said pitifully, Ancestral Master, it's very troublesome to bring guards. I like to be alone outside. I can enjoy the rare loneliness. Seeing him acting cute, Lei Xingfeng had goosebumps all over his body. An old man acting cute in front of a beautiful guy whose gender was unknown. He felt more comfortable being struck by lightning. Wu Yang said, Nonsense, I'm saving a life. Your master is anxious to kill someone. How can I just stand by and watch? Then he said, Bah, enjoy the loneliness. What nonsense. Tanya giggled and said, Xiao San has such a temper. Master, don't scold him. Lei Xingfeng looked on coldly. For the first time, he realized that this small group was very united. Whether it was the ancestral master, or master's wife, they all treated their disciples well. This made him very happy. A humane master was better than a cold master. He liked this kind of atmosphere. Qi Meiyun said, Third senior brother, if you want to take revenge, bring me along. I've been idle for too long. I also want to move around a bit. Xian Zhaoluan said, Junior sister, sure, let's go together. This time he did not refuse. Lei Xingfeng also wanted to move around. Recently, he had been studying too hard and was a bit tired. He said, Third senior brother, bring me along too. It was only then that Xian Zhaoluan noticed Lei Xingfeng. He asked in confusion, Gucci said, This is your 9th junior brother. Xian Zhaoluan said, disciple. Thank you that I just accepted. As his senior brother, said, what are you have to take care of him? It's just that you little brats shouldn't cause too much trouble. Surprised. Don't make me worry. Master, that's filial piety. You've accepted another disciple? He turned Gucci and replied. Xian, I just took him in not long ago. Smiled bitterly. He's only 17 years old, but he's already a true ringmaster. I'm not like you, who doesn't go out all day. Of course, there's no trouble. Said. Gucci stared at him and said, So little powerful. How can you say that? Little junior brother, don't go. It's too dangerous. Foolishly. And Lei Xingfeng laughed. Hey, little junior brother, I'm not going to do anything. Come here. I just want to watch the show came in and see said, more. Third senior brother, Zhaoluan, why are you injured again? Also very straightforward. Who hit you? He said, Tell me. I see. Okay. I'll take revenge for you. We'll take you with us when we take action. Said, this time he didn't refuse. With your level, as long as Lei Xingfeng didn't do anything, you're just a tyrant. There wouldn't be any danger. He knew that the guards that his master What's wrong with my level? My level must be very strong. Gucci and Xian Zhaoluan covered their foreheads for a while. At the same time. I'll go back first. Gucci said, Yao, what are you doing here? Yin Yao said, I'm here to see senior brother. Senior brother, who hit you? I'll help you. Xian Zhaoluan smiled and said, Okay, wait until I've recovered, and I'll take you there. He said in his heart, Wait until I've recovered, and I'll leave quietly. Who would dare to take a troublemaker like you? Yin Yao said, Okay, it's a promise. Don't go back on your word. After she finished speaking, she ran away. She was too lazy to stay with Qi Meiyun. The two of them were enemies and would quarrel whenever they were together. Lei Xingfeng also took his leave. He could see that Xian Zhaoluan was exhausted and didn't plan to continue chatting with him. If he wanted to build a relationship, there would be plenty of time in the future. 10 days later, Lei Xingfeng was hiding at home to study when a servant came in and reported, Third Master is here. Third Master, was third senior brother Xian Zhaoluan. Lei Xingfeng hurriedly went out to welcome him. Xian Zhaoluan and Qi Meiyun walked into the courtyard together. Qi Meiyun said, "Number 9, why don't you stay in your own courtyard? Why are you staying here? Your courtyard is much prettier than this one." Lei Xingfeng said, "This place is already pretty good. Third senior brother, fourth senior sister. How come you have time to come here today?" Xian Zhaoluan said, "Didn't you want to come with me to watch the show?" Lei Xingfeng's spirit was suddenly lifted. He smiled and said, "Are we going now?" Xian Zhaoluan nodded and said, "We're leaving right away. What do you need to prepare?" Lei Xingfeng said, "No, I'll just bring 2 bodyguards. I don't need to prepare anything else. I don't need to do anything anyway." After calling a Shanlover and giving him a few instructions, Lei Xingfeng brought Tiger Love and Mad Eagle as they followed Xian Zhaoluan and Qi Meiyun out. Soon they arrived outside. Xian Zhaoluan and Qi Meiyun both brought a group of people. Lei Xingfeng saw that these people were all experts. There were a total of 30 people. They should be the 2's subordinates or bodyguards. Xian Zhaoluan opened the Luan Point and brought everyone away. After passing through the ancient Luan Passage, Lei Xingfeng came to an unfamiliar place. There were rocks everywhere and no trees. There were only stubborn weeds growing in the cracks of the rocks. There was no end in sight. Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "There's nothing here. Where is this place?" Xian Zhaoluan said, "Shattered Stone Plains." Qi Meiyun said, "Number 9, this place is a treasure trove. Shattered Stone Plains has countless mineral resources. You might come here often in the future. After you condense Leiyin, you'll need to refine your own weapon. This is a place you must visit. You've come here a bit early. Hee, those who can come here are mostly true Yin masters with 6 true ring bodies. They've condensed their own seals and need to refine weapons. Only then will they come here." Lei Xingfeng turned his head and asked, "Uncle Tiger, Uncle Ling, you've been here before?" Tiger Love and Mad Eagle nodded. "Yes, we've been here before." Mad Eagle added, "We've been here many times. This place is very dangerous. Fights often happen here." Qi Meiyun said, "I like fighting. Hee, if it wasn't for third senior brother, Master wouldn't have let me come. I hope I can have fun this time." She had a strong desire to fight. This was brought about by her attribute. She was the most common and also the most popular attribute. Xian Zhaoluan said, "You too have to protect number 9 well." Lei Xingfeng was very depressed. He was the youngest. So why was he called number 9 instead of little 9? Tiger Love and Mad Eagle didn't answer, only nodding slightly after becoming Lei Xingfeng's guards. Their fates were tied together with Lei Xingfeng. No matter what happened in the future, they would always follow him. With their talent, they might reach the peak of the 9th ring sage, Ashen Seal. Even if they reached the peak, it would be impossible for them to go any further. However, they knew that with Lei Xingfeng's potential and talent, he had a very high chance of surpassing the 9th ring sage. Xian Zhaoluan brought 20 guards, while Qi Meiyun brought 12. They were all people who had followed them after they became masters. Their strength was quite strong. Only a few of them were 6th ring sages, while the majority were 7th ring sages and above. Among them, there were even 9th ring Ashen Seal sages. This strength was too great. It could be seen how deep Xian Zhaoluan's hatred was. According to his habits, he hadn't brought guards out for a long time. This time, not only did he bring guards, he also brought his junior brothers and sisters. The reason why he didn't bring Yin Yao wasn't because Xian Zhaoluan and Yin Yao didn't have a good relationship. If he brought her along, there would be endless trouble. Yin Yao and Qi Meiyun, as long as they were together, there would be sparks flying everywhere. Who knew if the two would fight? This was a huge headache for Xian Zhaoluan. They were both his junior sisters. He couldn't side with either of them. Hence, the best way was to separate them. This group of people could all fly. The only exception was Lei Xingfeng. He hadn't reached the flying realm yet. However, with 2 guards, he didn't have to worry. Mad Eagle carried Lei Xingfeng on his back and moved with the group. He wouldn't drag everyone down just because Lei Xingfeng couldn't fly. The one with the highest cultivation here was Xian Zhaoluan. Not only was he a 9th ring sage with Ashen Seal, he was also a great expert who was about to become a monarch. Once he did, he would be on par with his senior brother. He would definitely be able to sweep through the super experts of the large sections. The group of people flew through the air. Many cultivators saw them from afar and immediately ran as far as they could. With one look, it was clear that this group of people wasn't to be trifled with. More than 30 cultivators with 6th ring sages and above. This strength was terrifying. Qi Meiyun said, "Senior brother, who did this to you?" She was really curious. She knew that her senior brother had always been smarter than others. She didn't expect that someone would be able to harm him. Xian Zhaoluan's bald head was shining. When this matter was brought up, he felt vexed. He said, F***CK, I was tricked by a bastard. Qi Meiyun said, "Who is it? How dare they?" Xian Zhaoluan was very shy and a little angry. He said, "A woman." Qi Meiyun couldn't help but shout, "Ah, ah." Xian Zhaoluan said angrily, "I say, can you not make such a fuss?" Qi Meiyun said, "No wonder you didn't tell master. So you were tricked by a woman. Ah, senior brother, you're good. That woman, is she beautiful?" Her gossipy nature was ignited. Even Lei Xingfeng signaled Mad Eagle to fly faster. He pricked up his ears to listen. Xian Zhaoluan said very honestly, "She's beautiful. It's because she's F***King beautiful that I was tricked." Wah ha 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 ha. Qi Meiyun suddenly burst into laughter. Lei Xingfeng wasn't amused by Xian Zhaoluan, but he was amused by Qi Meiyun's wild laughter. The group of guards around them tried their best to keep a straight face. They also wanted to laugh, but they didn't dare to. The expressions on their faces were as strange as they could be. Xian Zhaoluan's face suddenly turned red. "How embarrassing," he said. "Okay, don't laugh, junior sister." Qi Meiyun covered her mouth with all her strength, but she still couldn't stop laughing. You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.